Hi everyone, I'm so grateful to be here. And I have the honor of opening up with a song, and it's a song called Where Only Love Is Known. Above the battleground, you hear the silent sound. Don't look back, you are right on time. I'll walk with you into the divine. Come with me, I'll carry you, guide you all the way through to where only love is known, so you can claim your throne. Let me lift you higher up until you reach the top. God awaits to see your smile, your love, your joy, your bright shining light. Come with me, I'll carry you, guide you all the way through to where only love is known, so you can claim your throne. Shine your light, share your love, spread your joy, hold your peace. This is how you stay with me forever in eternity. Come with me, I'll carry you, guide you all the way through to where only love is known, so you can claim your throne. Come with me, I'll to where only love is known, so you can claim your throne. Thank you. Thank you.
What a nice way to open up our closing session. I know you all enjoyed it as much as we did, and I'll give you a little sneak peek. Svava has got an electric guitar. So enjoy that wooden one. Enjoy Woody for a while. That could be a whole new genre coming. So for all we know. That was exciting. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Wow, wasn't that a powerful experience yesterday with our three little seers and little guides in our Portuguese movie Fatima. So we are so grateful to be here, and Francis is here, and we've been going over your questions, and there's some really good questions. And so usually on the closing session we just share a bit from our hearts, and then we take your written questions and thoroughly go through those, and then we usually open it up for live questions after all of that. So that's so beautiful. But this whole retreat, kind of your talk on Friday kind of set the tone of really come back and see the holiness in your mind. And even for those of you that are doing the Course in Miracles lessons, with the calendar, these lessons have been really about holiness. So that's interesting. It's perfectly synchronized with our Holy Relationship Retreat of coming to see the holiness in yourself, see the holiness in the world that you perceive, and realize that there's nothing that your holiness cannot do, and that your mind is very holy. And it takes it away from the focus on bodies and forms. But of course, that's where the questions start. So we welcome all your questions relating to the body and all the aspects of the body. But yes, Jesus does kind of poke fun. He does, at one point, he calls it the hero of the dream. He says that this dream is the serial adventures of the body. So he's kind of poking fun. He's like saying our dream is like a soap opera. And he's like saying, you guys are so into the soap opera, your emotions are so tied into the perception, but you tune into the soap opera every day. And I'm inside your heart going, I'm here, I'm here, I'm in here. Don't look so much at the soap opera, come inside to me. So, that's kind of the context for what we're talking about today.
Yeah. And yesterday, I think you mentioned that holy relationship is the Holy Spirit's answer to the problem. And I really like that, because he actually says that in the Course, everybody established a special relationship. Whoever comes to Earth has formed a special relationship, but that is not a problem. And that is not a problem that we need to solve on our own, because the Spirit already has a solution. And that is really the good news. The Spirit already has a solution. It's called holy relationship, but it's not what we think. It's not that we have to still think from the frame of mind of bodies, special relationships, couples, and then try to solve it there. We really have to be very open and to say, okay, Spirit, what your solution is something beyond my understanding. And let me just ask for your solution. So I think But why is that we what we see and what the spirit solution is there is a big gap. There is a big gap because what we see in this separate world is, there are separate situations, there are separate problems, and there are separate solutions within the problems. Mm-hmm. So I think we want to actually lead it into someone's question, because I think that just lays the foundation that can be a launching point for our session today.
Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, it's I want to read out Brenda Brish from France. I want to thank you for your sending your question in, and I'm gonna read your question. Hi, Brenda. So, question: please shed some light on how illusion was made in secret. This Jesus refers to in the sentence below in the ACIM text. I'm trying to understand why he says, "You made in secret." It is important, as he says, that release depends on our acknowledging it. So it's from chapter 21, section 13. No, chapter 2. Grant that everything that seems to stand between you and your brother, keeping you from each other and separate from your Father, you made in secret, and the instant of release has come to you. Many thanks, Brenda.
Yeah, thank you, Brenda. Well, that is one of the topics that I talk about a lot, and so I've done quite a lot of teachings on that. But you might say that the belief in separation from God is not a real thought. It's not a real idea. That's why in the Course it's called a tiny, mad idea. And the only way that these tiny, mad idea and all of the egoic beliefs and thoughts that follow from it could even seem to have an existence is through a process of dissociation, where Jesus is saying, you're trying to keep two irreconcilable thought systems in your mind that don't ever meet, and they don't coexist. One is of love and one is of fear, and they cannot coexist. It's kind of like a version of the Bible where it says perfect love casts out fear. And what Jesus is saying is you have to bring the darkness to the light, and then the darkness will disappear. So dissociation is the process whereby two irreconcilable thought systems are tried. It's an attempt to keep them both alive, and that's a split mind. And what Jesus tells us is that the self-concept, which is the self that you made to take the place of your Christ identity, is actually, it has two parts. And the top part is called the face of innocence. And then there's a bottom part that he says is so dark that that's why the top part was made. The part that you see as your world and your personality self, that is all part of a projection, because the part that's underneath that is so dark. He calls it draped with sin. That's how dark it is. It's used as that phrase. And the top part is the face of innocence. He says sometimes it's wet with tears at the injustices of the world, but the only reason you maintain this kind of victim mentality as a person is because you're afraid to look at what's underneath. Now, there's been a lot of psychologists going back to William James and Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung called this dark aspect of the mind the shadow. And for most psychologists and psychiatrists, they call it the unconscious mind. Jesus has a different name for it. He calls it the dream you made in secret. It's the ego. The ego is the one who made up this secret dream, And the reason it's secret is because if you raised it up into awareness, if you actually exposed all those unconscious thoughts and beliefs, all those private thoughts, all those secret thoughts, then you would see they're not real. You would just laugh, and you would go, I have no need of this. I'm a child of God. I have no need of secret dreams. But when the mind takes this seriously, this little puff of nothingness, the ego, takes it to be a serious idea, capable of actual accomplishment, meaning, I can accomplish separation, I can actually separate from God, then this unconscious mind, or this shadow, is what the ego is and what the ego made. And also the projected world that we see with all the bodies and stars and planets, that's the dream Jesus says that you gave away. What does that mean? The dream you gave away, it's as if it's being done to you without your consent. People say, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, it's the secret dream that's producing the whole perception of the world. And it's also why you have to expose what you're thinking and believing to the Holy Spirit in order to let it go. You can't just use affirmations, and you can't just talk in positive thoughts and think that just the positive thoughts and positive thinking and affirmations will take away this secret dream, because the ego actually laughs at positive thoughts. It's almost like the ego is like sitting down there like a spider in the well, just going, is that the best you can come up with, is some positive affirmations? I've got you in a trap, in a prison, in your mind, and you're throwing positive affirmations at me. They don't dispel the ego. We have to expose the darkness. We have to go through the darkness to the light. There was a movie also called What the Bleep Do We Know? And I showed a bit of it a few weeks ago, I think, and it was the sequel called Down the Rabbit Hole. But in that movie, actually in both movies, there's a speaker who's like a theologian, Michael Ledwith. And in the first movie, he said, trying to affirm positive things is like putting a little smear over something that's very black and dark. And he was poking fun again at the idea of just positive thoughts, when until you get at that unconscious belief system, you don't really have a chance of finding consistent peace of mind, because unconscious is out of mind. It's repressed, it's suppressed, it's denied from awareness, and you can't release something that you aren't even aware of, that you aren't even aware that you believe it. So it's actually, that's why we chose your question to kind of lead off today, because these are really deep metaphysics. And that's why Jesus says, you made this secret. He's speaking to the mind that seems to be split, that believes the ego is real. And of course, that's how he has to address his course, because that mind needs help. And so he's going to say words like, you made this secret dream. You made this secret aspect. So it's very important. Yeah. And Jung basically said, you have to look at your shadows before you can let them go. And Jesus says the same thing in his own words, that he says, the more you look at fear, the less you'll see of it. When people first read that line in the Course, they're like, what? What's he even talking about? The more you look at fear, the less you'll see of it. He's saying the more you look at your unconscious darkness with the Holy Spirit, the less you'll see of it in the world. Because the dream that was given away is just a reflection of what's going on in the mind. And the more you look at the ego with the Holy Spirit, that exposes it and shows its nothingness. And then the less symbols or witnesses of the fear you see in the world. So I'm glad you asked that. Isn't that a great way to start our session with? Thank you. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you, Brenda. Yeah, I think it's interesting for us to read your questions because a lot of you are having similar questions in the same topic. So, today in answering them, I might just group them together because they're very, very similar. I think from that, we have quite a few questions around sexuality. George from Canada, George asked, how or can sexual relationship be applied to the Course? That's a very direct question. And then in the same vein, Maria from Netherlands said, Dear Living Miracles, thank you for this wonderful weekend. I had a burning question coming up. My partner and I are sort of separated, but still living as a family of 4 in the same house, as lovingly as possible. I release him and me from old duties and concepts belonging to having a special relationship. I would love to transform our remaining relationship/friendship and turn it into a holy relationship. The problem for me is that he's not willing to look at sex thoughts. He just wants to act on his desires. He's dating women because of sexual desires. I have none in the moment and haven't had them for a long time. I feel this is somehow a problem for us. Where does this leave us in terms of a holy relationship? Thank you so much. Love you dearly, Maria. Yeah, thank you.
That's beautiful. Well, George Miranda asked the question, how can sexual relationship be applied to the Course? And when I was talking just a moment ago about the secret dream and the dream that was given away, the next step that people ask is, wow, it's helpful to know that, Jesus, but can you go a little further into the correction? What do I do with that? How do I heal from that? And Jesus is telling us, he's saying, you need to bring the darkness to the light, and the darkness will disappear. Okay, what does that mean? You need to bring the illusions of the ego that you believe in to the light of truth in your mind, and the illusions will disappear. So, in terms of your question about how can sexual relationship be applied to the Course, it can't. You can't apply sexual relationship to the Course, but how can the teachings of the Course be applied to sexual relationship? Now there we've got a good question. You see, if we flip the question, then all of a sudden Jesus smiles and goes, oh, now I can help you with that. But this is the most common mistake that spiritual seekers make, and students of the Course, is they see the Course as a book, and they see their world in terms of themes and topics and situations and circumstances. And they may say, okay, I've got a question about sexual relationship. Now, how can I apply that to the Course? Where, as Jesus is saying, I'll give you some teaching principles that will set your mind free, but you will have to practically apply them through the workbook to everything that you perceive. And sexual difficulties or issues in sexual relationships is the same actually as issues around finances, issues around health, issues around all types of interpersonal relationships with the government, with your neighbors, with the environment. All of those are projections of the ego belief system, and Jesus is saying, you actually have to come inside with me and take a look at what you believe and what you think, because what you perceive is an outward projection of an inward condition. And that inward condition is guilt. To believe in the ego and think with the ego, that generates guilt. And then you look out in the world and you say, why do I have guilt in my sexual relationships? Or why do I have guilt around skipping school or not paying back the money that I owed? And Jesus is like, well, the problem is not out there in the world. It's not in the projection. It's actually in your mind. And it's with your thoughts alone that we must work. I always used to say when I would practice, when I would get upset, I would practice with workbook lessons 5, 6, 7, 8. And number 5, workbook lesson 5, is I'm never upset for the reason I think. So let's apply that to sexual relationship. You know, it might be people have already expressed, I'm not getting enough sex, or there's too much sex, or my partner wants sex, but I don't have sexual feelings, and those are the kind of things that are expressed. And Jesus is saying, well, I'm never upset for the reason I think. We even had a friend of ours from years ago, Helena Hunison, who made a song. That's not the reason why. That's not the reason why. The problem's not out there. You have to look inside. And the whole song is called That's Not the Reason Why. It took lesson number 5, and she made a whole song about it. So you get this happy tune reminding you, you're not upset for the reason you think. You're upset because you see something that's not there. You perceive a world that is totally generated from the ego. It's not even there. It doesn't even exist in truth, in reality. And then I'm upset because my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. That's number 8. And number 7 is I see only the past. So he's giving us in those 4 lessons the whole dynamics about you have to go and expose the secret dream, because the world you perceive is just an unreal effect of an unreal cause. The unreal cause is the ego. The world of time and space, the whole cosmos, is an unreal effect. And that's what we like about these questions. We can maybe shift over to the one you read. Maria's next, because George set us up for moving a little more into Maria's question. But basically, Maria, you're saying, I'm dealing with a situation where I have an ex-partner living in the same house, and there's 4 of us now, and he still has all these sexual desires, and he's dating women, and that you don't have any sexual desires coming in the moment. And you're wanting to turn the special relationship into a holy relationship. But from what I've just shared, we can see that you're seeing the special relationship as a particular form, and you're seeing the holy relationship as another form, and you're saying, Jesus, where's that magic wand? I want you to come and sprinkle some pixie dust on my ex-partner. Or we even had a comedy skit where it was the holy relationship pill. That's what people really like. We just did a illumination celebration where we had a holy relationship pill, where you give it to your partner, you slip it in his drink, and then he turns into a holy relationship. But you're asking a really good question, but the underpinnings of the question is what we have to look at. Because again, truth does not come into illusion, and so Jesus doesn't transform specialness to holiness in the form, because form is just a projection or an interpretation of what's believed in the mind. And the specialness is a belief in the mind. It's possible to have a special relationship with food. It's possible to have a special relationship with the body or with climate or temperature. It's possible to have a special relationship with mom or dad or children. It's the specialness is the wish to make a hierarchy of illusions. It's the wish to have some things in the world be more important than others. And you can see that as you go deeper into having that purified, then the whole perception that you have about what seems to be your household will shift dramatically as you go into the holiness. That's what Francis was talking about on Friday. You were really taking it away from the perceptions of the bodies and the people into going into the mind.
Yeah. And yesterday, while we were watching that amazing movie in the commentary, I got a message from someone who asked me a question. He said, Jesus said our only function is to accept atonement for ourselves. He said, I can get for ourselves part, but why the word accept? And I thought, yes, that's the only thing that we still need to know is that the answer is already there. You know, we don't have to try to come up with the answer even in our lives, in our relationships. We perceive things are not working out, and we don't have to try to come up with a better solution. Spirit has an answer, and he said just accept. And I really talked with him a little bit about this word accept. It indicates the answer is already done. And actually in the Course, Jesus does say that miracles will get you the closeness to anybody you ever feel. So in his way, he is saying miracles is the answer to any questions that you would have on planet Earth. If you have a specific problems, that's not a problem that you have that. It doesn't matter that you seem to see questions and problems as, you know, in specific forms, but if you are willing to accept my answer, then my answer is going to come in the form of miracles that you can understand. But it's not something that of us we can orchestrate or make happen. We can't even orchestrate the miracles. We can't say, in order for me to have a holy relationship, this person, I need to change my relationship with this person at this given time. We have to just let it all be given to the Spirit and say, well, what is the miracle you want me to receive today? You know, then with that open mind, it's like what Vanessa yesterday from Co-Living, she was expressing. She had anger with her student, which was very unexplained, and yet a miracle was given that was transcending the problem. So actually, in my own life, I realized this is the way the Spirit wants to work with us. It's just to say, be open in even the way you're defining your problems, because a miracle is going to come and take away this definition too. So.
Yeah, and it's beautiful, Maria, the way you wrote your question out, because I was sensing that you and your partner are sort of separated, living in the same house still, and then living as a family of four. But then you say, I released him and me from all duties and concepts belonging to having a special relationship. Well, that is the right direction. You are right on the right direction when you look at releasing duties and concepts. Now, what we could say is we could go into that a bit deeper. I mean, we had a holy relationship panel, and Susan and Eric were talking about the thing where Eric is working all day and he has so many things that he's doing in function, and then Susan was practicing going inside and praying to see it differently. And that's what I would say. The duties, again, can seem to be like behaviors. like typically when people are in a partnership, okay, can you help out with the cooking or do the dishes? Who's going to take the garbage out this week? Who's going to clean the bathroom? Who's going to make the bed? That's the practicality of what seems to be life on planet Earth, like dividing up duties. Okay, I'll stay with the children, but you go to work and earn the money so we can pay our light bills and pay the rent. Okay, we're describing a very common situation. And here now you're in the same house and there's four of you and your ex-partner, like you were saying, sort of separated. You're going through a process of what the world would say of separating. And yet, when you talk about the duties, those are thoughts and beliefs and concepts too. And that's why when Susan was saying she took it to prayer and then she got really happy in a hurry, is because the solution comes from going inside to Spirit, to Jesus, and really honestly saying, I need another way to look at this. It's not like you can just take the duties away and say, okay, we're not in a relationship anymore, so I'm going to take these expectations and duties that you were doing and I was doing. We'll just take those away. Because if you just take those away in form and you still feel a bit of a charge when he's dating his desires, he's dating other women, and there's still maybe some emotions coming up if he even brings them back, brings them to the house or talks about how his night went. Oh, we had a great night and we had passionate sex and everything, and you're like, well, I actually don't need to hear about this. If you don't mind, I let go of your duties and my duties, and you're still talking about your sexual exploits, in our house, and that's stirring it up. Jesus is saying, well, actually, when you're stirred up, say to yourself, I'm never upset for the reason I think, and start to go inside and take a look at the expectations that you still have based on the thoughts and beliefs of the ego. You're on the right track when you said that, I released him and me from all these duties, concepts belonging to having a special relationship. That's exactly what we're talking about. You're going zooming inside your mind toward the light, toward the healing. But this is where the form and content issue comes up, is like Francis was addressing on Friday, when the specialness is, or the special relationship is seen to be a certain way in form, then already you've put some expectations out on that form. You've seen some meaning in the form that's really not there. That's why the first lesson of the Course is nothing I see means anything. It's a whole unraveling of the way we perceive the world. And it's so deep. It runs so deep. So I thank you for being so transparent and candid. And your question, I think, is helping so many who are watching right now or will watch or hear about this, because it's a very common question.
Yeah.
It's a very beautiful question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for asking.
Maria. Thank you. And I think she's just led into the tip of the iceberg, because when I looked at our whole set of questions, I said, there's a lot of questions around sexuality here, so maybe we just demystify the whole thing and and bring a miraculous way of perceiving the whole thing. It doesn't have to be so mysterious or so mystifying. When you actually start to go deep enough with it, you can actually start to feel the blessing of the light. But maybe we've got a whole group there, you can pick out something that jumps out at you.
Well, we have more questions around sexuality. Should I keep going with that?
Yeah, we might as well keep rolling on with that one for a bit here.
Okay.
I was just telling Francis, I used to live up in Utah, and I would always go to the Sundance Film Festival that Robert Redford supports. And I saw that the Sundance Film Festival this year, they're doing their entire festival. It's all digital, it's all online because they can't have theaters full of people. So I was looking at it and they said, oh yeah, there is a movie though that people are coming to online in droves. They can't get it. They can't even fit in the room, the digital room, because it's so popular. And I thought, well, what's that? And the name of the movie is Pleasure. It's about the porn industry. I'm like, oh yeah, Sundance Film Festival. There it is. That's the movie that's the most attention and attraction. It's called Pleasure, and it's the porn industry, and it's a Swedish actress and a group of people that she works with, all about positions and inside the porn industry. And I'm like, well. So I thought I would just bring that up in context, so I can talk to you about this. This is an award-winning movie now.
Yeah.
I don't know if it will win an award, but it's definitely the most attended online movie in Sundance Festival.
Okay, well, maybe I'll go next to Jonathan from Seattle. Hi, Jonathan. Hi. Hi. Jonathan says, the ego uses the body for pride, attack, and pleasure. Throughout my spiritual life and coursework, I have watched my pride and attack thoughts diminish greatly, and humility and forgiveness begin to truly blossom. Where I'm currently struggling is still believing and experiencing that pleasure, sexual / self-pleasuring / pornography, etc., still brings me fulfillment, even though the immediate result brings me guilt, shame, and frustration. Any help or suggestion would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, David.
Okay, well, that's a request. Maybe I'll have to, on one of my Saturday movie workshops, I'll have to get a hold of this Swedish movie. Pleasure. I'll do a lead in. I say, this one's for you, Jonathan. This one's for you, buddy. Well, that's a beautiful lead into the topic of sexuality and all of the guilt and struggles that people have with it. You know, actually, when Helen Schuckman was channeling A Course in Miracles and taking down the shorthand, and then Bill was, typing it out from the shorthand notes, basically they came to a point where Jesus started to dismantle the whole idea of pain and pleasure and talk about the dynamics of guilt. And I think I recently mentioned that there's 3 sections in the Course that are subsections that are titled Attraction to Guilt, followed by Attraction to Pain, followed by Attraction to Death. Well, with those 3, I have people tell me, no, he didn't really do that. And I say, yeah, he did. It's in there. It's all in the Course. And let's talk about it. The other thing that happened, though, was that, and Ken Wapnick knew this very, very well, was that Helen, at the beginning of taking down the Course, her channel with Jesus was a little bit clogged, and so there were things that came through that were typed in the original urtext and notes that were distorted. They actually were distortions of Jesus' teachings. And later on, of course, Jesus worked with Helen and with Ken to edit those out. And actually that's why we have 5 versions of the Course. There's actually distorted versions of the Course that are out, but people don't go deep enough. They don't understand the context of things, and even that, it seemed to be Jesus was saying the only use of sex that was good was procreation. And then over the years, many years, I've had a lot of people that said, I'm gay, and what, am I guilty? Am I a sinner now because I have sexual thoughts and feelings and actions that aren't procreation? And what am I? Do I burn in hell now, David? And I'm like, Well, listen, it's a long answer, but hang with me. So what I'll say is that it was actually Friday night, Martha came on at the end, and she said, I've seen David talk in a video about distorted miracle impulses. She brought the topic up. So Martha, thank you. Thank you, my Espanol friend, for bringing that up. Because distorted miracle impulses are basically impulses to wake up, to return to God, which are miracle impulses. But when these beams of light come into consciousness, remember, consciousness is the domain of the ego, receiving messages from above and below. But when these miracle impulses come through the ego filter, which is a belief system of lack, then these miracle impulses, which are just impulses to wake up and remember God, they actually come out on the surface of consciousness as cravings. So when you have sexual desires, or we'll say cravings for pleasure, it can be around for food, or it can be around temperature, it can be around climate preferences, it can be around affection preferences, it can preferences for art or music. All of these cravings, when you have a craving for something, that's a distorted miracle impulse. So when Jesus first dictated that line to Helen, and she was taking it down in shorthand, basically she took down that sexual impulses are distorted miracle impulses. And then Jesus did have her go back later on and say, you can change the word sexual to physical. So he said, you can have it read now, physical impulses are distorted miracle impulses. So he made it more generalized. What was he talking about? Every time we're thirsty, every time we're hungry, every time we have a craving, even for more money, or we have a craving that the situation should be different. Oh, I'd be happy if you weren't living in this house, or I'd be happy if this politician would get elected over that politician. But in your case, you're looking at it in terms of pleasure. Like there's a strong preference for certain things. It could be sexual things, or it could be food, or many things. But that preference is where the guilt comes in. Because Jesus is saying the miracle, there's no order of difficulty in miracles, and there's no hierarchy of illusions. He's saying if you come into the light, you will behold this whole world in a different way than through this ego filter. And you'll see a happy dream. You'll see a forgiven world. So this really gets deep at a lot of things, whether we talk about overeating, or whether we talk about body image things, or dietary things. There's a lot of topics that fit under this umbrella. But your question is really bringing it out, because you can feel yourself loosening through your meditations and your work with the Course, and really you've led a devoted life to spirit. You really have been giving your heart over to it, and you can see the shifts and changes that are happening. And then there's some things like the ego will just rear up in terms of the desire for pleasure, and that's exactly what's happening. There's still miracle impulses, but they're still just coming through this filter of lack. And to the human being, pleasure seems so much better than pain. That reminds me of a saying in the Bible, eat, drink, and be merry, for one day we shall die. That seems to encourage us as human beings, like, live it up. You're going to be dead one day, so you might as well make the best of it. And it really doesn't cover the depth of spiritual awakening, which is basically Jesus saying there's a big difference between pleasure and joy. Joy comes directly from those miracle impulses coming directly into your awareness. Call somebody, visit somebody, give a kind word here, give a hug here, listen patiently and don't react. Just totally be fully present with your brother or your sister. Those are miracle impulses that come into consciousness, and there is an action component that's controlled by Jesus. You know, if you're actually supposed to say or do something to bring a blessing, or sometimes there is no action component. You just feel the love and the connection, and you send a blessing out to the whole universe. But ultimately, that's part of our work of letting go of the filter of the ego through letting go of ego thoughts and beliefs. And that's how we see a happy dream, is through the purification within. We allow the light to purify consciousness and to reach the highest height of consciousness, which is forgiveness, which is the forgiven world. So that's a fantastic question, because I think that relates to a lot of things that came up during the panel, and a lot of things that have come up, and I actually think it almost is a segue into your wife's question, because that was like the first. Jessamine had a question too, right at the beginning, and that one related more to like abuse and things like that. You want to read that?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. And your question is, Dear David and Francis, I'd like to ask you both about the fear of connection. In the parable of Yes Man, I have experienced betrayal, abuse, and neglect in relationship. As I write this, again, I'm reminded of the practice of forgiveness. The answer always. But if you would, please share your thoughts on the fear of love. Why am I fearful of what my heart desires most? Thank you very much.
Very profound. There's just some segments of this question that go right to the core of everything. The very last question, why am I fearful of what my heart desires most? That is such a question. That's a question for the whole human race, right there. Even the movie we watched, Fatima, that's an interesting question. Why am I fearful of what my heart desires most? Even at the end, during the miracle of the sun, the people were getting a symbol of light, and they went running. They thought the sun was going to fall and burn them. And it just shows, wow, there must be some kind of fear in there when they're with Mother Mary and she's given them a symbol of light, and they're afraid. They're actually terrified of the symbol that's coming. Well, if you look at the Course, what the Course is saying is that there is no love but God's. So we could say in the world, in the realm of form, there seems to be different kinds of love. There's human relationship love. There's the love of a pet owner for their pet, or for the animal kingdom, or for, sports teams. I mean, I actually like to, when I'm driving around, I see the bumper stickers, I love the Seahawks, or I heart Seahawks, or I heart Mariners, since you're up in that area, and there's the heart, but it's got Mariners or Seahawks after it, and that just shows that in this world there seems to be so many different types of love. And people would say, yeah, there is a difference between romantic love and puppy love. There's a big difference. And Jesus, in one of his workbook lessons, says, well, there is no love but God's. If you know God, then you know what love is. And if you don't know God, you have no idea whatsoever of what love is. You may get glimmers and glimpses, and you feel your heart whoosh and expand, and you go, wow, That's what I want. I feel it, and I want that experience always. I just want to live in that experience. Jesus does tell us in the Forgotten Song section, he said, if you remembered even the faintest glimpse of love and how it was when you were with those that you loved, he starts to describe like heaven. He says you would weep. He said if you started to get into how powerful that love, there's nothing in this world that comes close, and you have no idea about how much God loves you. But if you started to come into memory of what it was like, the tears would just come rolling down your face. It would be like so intense and overwhelming that you would you'll probably lose your breath, like, oh my, I never knew. Like that little character in What to Bleed Down the Rabbit Hole. Oh, I never knew. I never knew. So that's what the love is. Now, when the mind believes in separation, it totally blocks out. It has total amnesia of that love. There is nothing comparable, and there's nothing in the human condition that comes even close to it. It's just so far beyond the human condition. And yet, the ego belief is terrified of the love because the ego would not exist in that love. The ego does not exist in that love. So as you start to open up to the miracles and you open up to the forgiveness, the ego starts freaking. It is freaking afraid, just like all those people when the miracle of the sun came. They were scurrying. They were all running for cover because they thought sun was going to fall on them and burn them. And yet that's how it is in relationships where we so desire love. But the relationships are projections, the bodies and the situations are projections of this unconscious ego belief system. So when you write earlier, I have experienced betrayal, abuse, and neglect in relationship. That's par for Earth. Everyone, that's why Shakespeare wrote so many 37, 38 plays of Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet. You know, what you've experienced, it's difficult because it didn't feel good. And yet I would say all humans go through that experience. Even Jesus, as he was growing up, I know in the Catholic system he was the virgin birth and he comes popping out of Mary and he's like, it's an immaculate conception, and it's like, and the wise men come and whoa, it's the Savior, it's the Messiah. No, Jesus actually, this was his last bestowal, his last lifetime, we'll call it, of waking up. And he had to go through the same trials and tribulations and the same thing that you read, betrayal, abuse, and neglect. He had to go through all those things too, and that's what makes him a great way shower, because he faced the ego and he transcended it. He said, be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. Satan is underfoot. Well, he said that in the Bible. He's just transcended the ego. But what you've experienced in relationship has just been the reflections and projections of the ego belief system and the ego thoughts. And that's what the Course is about, is practicing opening to forgiveness and miracles to raise those dark thoughts and beliefs up into awareness and let them be shown away in the light of truth, which is the Holy Spirit and Jesus in our mind. So it's really beautiful. You and Jonathan are on this path now of forgiveness, and some of the things we talked earlier, even about the pleasure and the sexual things, like you were sharing earlier, it's not such a big deal for you. You probably are saying, I just want love, harmony, joy, happiness. I'm not interested in the other things. And that's exactly what Jonathan wants too, and yet he still has some things that are still bubbling up from we'll call them distorted miracle impulses. And the answer is guidance. The answer to every question that's on here is guidance. So when people say to me, well, I'm not exactly ready to go into the convent or the monastery, although Jonathan, I think, he's done that already. He's already handled that one. People say, I'm really not ready to take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. That's not where my consciousness is at. And I say, great. You do have the Holy Spirit and Jesus with you, and the Spirit can guide you moment by moment and day by day. And it's the purpose for which you do anything that's the most important. So it's not the action, it's not the behavior that's important. It's the purpose that motivates the behavior. So, for example, I always say, what you do comes from what you think. And Jesus says that's why we have to work with what you think, because it's only at the level of thought that you can make correction. It's a trick to believe that we can make a significant change in form. Oh, I did a diet, now I'm 20 pounds less. Everyone goes, great, wonderful. What is that diet? I need to do that too. Or, you lose weight, you get more fit, some people say you should have a good sex life. Other people say, no, you're oversexed. You should have less. Everybody's got an opinion, but the world of form is a projection, and it's just a subjective opinion of reality that isn't reality at all. It's just a perceptual hallucination is what it is, that's been accepted as real, and it's not really there. So what a beautiful relationship that you both have, because you both are committed to following your intuition, following the Spirit, and taking it day by day, moment by moment, and also expressing your feelings, not trying to hold back, to the extent. That's what our Holy Relationship panel was about. It was such a beautiful expression of getting in touch with the feelings and being open to even talking about them and express them without judging, without drawing conclusions, without condemning. You're in this journey to God together, and you have all the right, you might say, ingredients, all the right conditions, and just that faith alone will carry you into that joy, that love that you are yearning for. You have every right to yearn for love and happiness and joy. It's our birthright. When we're asking for that, we're not really asking for something extraordinary. Jesus is saying, no, that's actually natural. That's good to ask for that, to pray for that. And he's saying, I will show you the way. I will guide you moment by moment to that inevitable experience of love that is our natural birthright as a child of God. So thank you. Both you and Jonathan are really saving us all thousands of years with those candid questions, saving the whole universe thousands of years. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Beautiful.
you. Yeah. We have another question around sexuality. Do we want to finish that topic?
Okay. Which one is that one?
Susan Condon. So Susan's question is, hello, I dreamt a violent past where sex was a cruelty and distorted pleasure of using bodies became an abuse. I have seen the past was never real and never ever touched my holy self and made it up to wake me up, and I'm so grateful to be on the healing side of it today. Thank you, David and team, for the years I've studied your work, and the healing is brought to my mind. My question is, I was told I need to repurpose sex and experience union in this way with another as an aspect of holy relationship. I have no desire to do this. and feel I have healed my mind from past sexual abuse. I feel no matter how you dress it up, it's still body on body, and I'm not a body. True communication is mind. However, I feel hung up on this. Can you address, please? Thank you for all.
Oh, beautiful, Susan. What a beautiful question. Well, much of your question is just singing the song of freedom of the mind. When the mind is no longer believing in duality and believing in the reality of form, it is free. And what your question is echoing is where Jesus said, you will perceive the flesh, or you will recognize the spirit. It's an either or. You'll perceive the flesh, or you'll recognize the spirit. And you're moving towards spiritual vision, Christ vision, which beholds the flesh no more. That's what Revelation shows. You get an actual direct experience of the light. And there are no bodies in that light. There are no forms. So you're very devoted to come to that. Also, Jesus says that when you are mind, you are wholly mind and purely mind, and the body is gone from your self-concept. So I feel like that's the direction of your question. The key thing you wrote in there was that you were told that you need to repurpose sex and experience union in a way with another as an aspect of holy relationship. Oh yeah, I like to go after that one. That's a good one. Repurposing sex, you have to first say, well, wait a minute, would there be any sex if there wasn't bodies? Well, no, we wouldn't have much to talk about, Somebody could bring it up and you'd say, what's that? Like children do sometimes. Mommy, what are you talking about? Mommy says sex, and the child goes, what's that? And why do you have that look on your face? It's like, is there something there I should know about? But not only that, we couldn't even talk about sexuality without preferences, which I was alluding to in the previous questions. If there were no preferences, wouldn't that change the topic of sex? Wouldn't that change the topic of food or weight if there were no preferences? Or beauty and ugly? If you just you vacuumed all the preferences out of the topic, you'd just have a smile on your face, because you would completely free the mind from these judgments. And preferences, make no mistake, are judgments. So when you've been told that you need to repurpose sex and experience union in this way with another, what basically the correct Jesus interpretation is, yeah, you need to repurpose the whole world. You need to repurpose your mind from wrong-minded, egoic thoughts and beliefs to right-minded, Holy Spirit, Jesus thoughts. And the one belief is forgiveness. That's the one belief that's helpful. So when you try to apply it to sex in terms of somebody telling you, you need to have sex in a new way, that could be the most positive interpretation of that would be, if you were guided intuitively by Jesus or Holy Spirit, and in a moment it was a guided thing that came to you and it just flowed from the guidance, that would be a repurposing while you still believed in the need for sex. But if you reach a state of mind where you free your mind of preferences, you will notice that your appetite will disappear. You will notice that sexual desires will disappear. The time is flashing up 1111 as I'm talking to you on our TV. Like Jesus is given the touchdown. He's like, touchdown! We got a touchdown here. You will find that the things that seem to be the human cravings and needs and that seem to be so common among the human condition will start to fade and fade and fade away, and joy and happiness and love comes stronger in awareness than these egoic cravings to try to fill up an emptiness or fill up a lack just will dissolve away. It's kind of like on a hot summer day when you have a thunderstorm and it rains and rains and rains and there's all this water. And then the sun, the clouds move, the sun comes out, and what happens to the water? It evaporates. You're actually going through a spiritual awakening where the ego and all of its cravings and things are evaporating from your consciousness. Now, you don't have to, if somebody tells you, you need to learn to do sex in a new way, I wish somebody would have asked Mother Teresa that. She probably would have given them an eye like, what'd you say to me? Who are you talking to? You can imagine Mother Teresa, in her saintly ways being asked a question from somebody, you need to repurpose sexuality, and her just kind of smiling and going, okay, it's not, what's the marital status of the number 5? Okay, next question, please. You want to help me feed this person over here? I've got some important stuff to do here. So you're on the right track that you don't so much repurpose this artificial construct called sexuality, but you do go for the purpose in your mind of the miracle and forgiveness. And like our little one, what was the woman, the little girl, 7 years old, Jacinta, yeah. Wow. Go for Jacinta. Did you see that little sparkler yesterday when the authority figures were coming at her? She was like a sparkler for God. I saw it. I heard her. She didn't have to say for the 100th time, authority figure. She was in it. She was in it. And that's a beautiful way shower of love and light. To me, that's what it's all about. You're going for it. And what a beautiful question, because it's a very deep question. I can see you've been practicing this for a long time, and yeah, you're just clearing away that question. So yeah, you don't have to worry about being told that question. It's more of just focusing on the miracle, and that will take care of everything. So thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you everybody who shared the question, because it's really for the whole universe, because it's really on a lot of people's mind.
Started with Martha, and then Susan put the whole thing to bed. Okay, let's move on to the next topic.
All right. So, what about a people-pleasing one?
Yeah, that's a good one. We can go on to a few of those people-pleasing questions.
Yes. We have a question around family, and then we have a question from Japan, Mi Seto. And Mi's question is, thank you for always guiding me. I have a question. It is about the difference between people-pleasing and kindness. I think that people-pleasing has a lot of fear in it. But when it comes to kindness, I'm not sure if what I want to do is kind or not. For example, after talking with someone who was going through a difficult time, and I felt as if he was a reflection of my mind, I suddenly felt like doing something for him and wanted to make lunch for him. Also, when I see someone working in the midst of feelings of dissatisfaction, I want to help them with their work. Does this mean that I'm just looking at my poor self because I can't see them as spirit in a safe place yet? What can you tell me about kindness?
That's
Thank
a
you,
really
Mi.
good one.
Yes.
We love these kind of deep questions.
Yes. Yes, I mean, I can start with the people pleasing. I think it is, such when I first came across the very practical application was when David and Jason came to Australia, and Jason came to my course group and said, in our community, we practice no private thoughts and no people pleasing. And I thought, wow, that's I can see the huge fear rising up in me. I don't know what that means. I don't know how to live a life like that. But over the years, I realized these people pleasing and kindness, what you're referring to, the kindness is what the spirit is, the very nature of the spirit. The spirit is very kind, is very gentle, is very, very loving. And when we get into the spirit in us, we radiate kindness. This is what fills up our mind. And in that kindness, actually a lot of action or words flow from that place. It's very natural. And people pleasing, for me, it has a sacrificial undertone in it. So to please others indicate something that's going to be lost in my own self-interest. So that's like very much an ego's game of being kind, because the ego's invention of anything is always a polar opposite side come with it. It doesn't have this totality of the spirit's quality. When I'm kind, I feel the love and the other people feels it too. But when I'm people please, the ego is saying it's all in the matter of actions. In the matter of actions, do the right thing. Do the things for others to please others, and then there is a sacrifice in it. So I think it is, to me, a very easy way to start to see the differentiation is the spirit is truly in the mind. It starts from here, starts from connecting with the miracles, starts from being activated by prayer. Then the action seems to flow. Everything you say is right because it is exactly what is most loving. And we can't really judge in terms of what loving is in the action, because they don't mean anything in and of itself in the actions. So I think, I just remember this morning when I was reading your question, I remember Bill Thetford, the original scribe of the Course in Miracles. He actually said one day, because Jesus talks about at the early part of the Course, when your brother asks you to do something outrageous, do it, because it doesn't matter. And then David would probably address it deeper, like it does clarify later on, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. But there was one incident where I think someone knocked on Bill Thetford's door at home, and a stranger basically said, Holy Spirit guide me to come here, ask you for $10,000. Give it to me. And Bill, without a hesitation, said, well, Holy Spirit told me to say no. So that is, but that is just, it really comes down to not in terms of action, not in terms of you always have to say yes, not in terms of action itself has a kindness or unkindness in and of itself. So it's in the purpose again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so beautiful that you're asking this too, because with the having an awareness of the we'll say the Japanese culture, and Francis and I have visited there in Tokyo and done digital gatherings and so forth. I feel a sense of honoring, a deep honoring. I mean, a very deep honoring that's actually even part of the Japanese culture. I know I have friends sometimes, a friend Nicholas up there in Camas one time when I was doing, Kirsten and I were doing an interactive online retreat, and he was having a lot of resistance coming up before the online retreat, but seeing these amazing, honoring, gentle, meek, kind Japanese women, he just cried. He just couldn't believe that there was such kindness and gentleness and honoring and presence. He said to me after the retreat was over, he said, "Boy, I broke through my resistance. I'm back. I'm back now with Jesus," just from the interactions with these women and their kindness and sincerity. It was so strong. So let's take a look at this more deeply, because I know a lot of people are saying kindness seems extremely important, and yet kindness has to come from a state of mind of true, I'll call it gentleness or meekness. That's what Jesus even said 2,000 years ago, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." It's got to be pretty important if he says meekness is associated with inheriting the earth. And he says in the Course, he explains himself, he says they will literally overcome the earth with the strength of their perception. Wow, that's an amazing interpretation of meekness. But meekness must come from true gentleness, which must come from true empathy. So I must be so aligned with the Spirit in what is real and true, to be truly gentle, to be truly meek, and to be truly kind. If I'm not aligned with Spirit, as Francis was just saying, the ego is so clever, it can come in with its own version of kindness, which involves people-pleasing and seeking approval and trying to maintain a kind self-concept. And Jesus is saying, no, the whole point of the Spirit is to undo the persona, undo the self-concept. So this is where you start to realize that you can't really act kind. You have to feel the kindness. You have to have the kindness state of mind in order to be strong, to overcome the world, as Jesus says, the meek shall overcome the world. Another thing, an aspect of it, is to be truly gentle, you have to be defenseless. If the mind is identified with the body, it can't be kind. If the mind is identified with personhood, with family constructs, with societal constructs, it can't actually be truly consistently kind. It may have glimmers of kindness, but it won't be able to be consistently kind in all circumstances because of an identification with a self-concept that God did not create. So as Francis said, Spirit is extremely kind, but as soon as you start to believe in ego things, like then expectations come in, and you may go visit a friend and they may talk to you and say things, and you may keep a kind smile on your face and you may keep a sweet look, and yet if they say something or do something that the ego, the mind takes offense to, it identifies itself in a personal way, and it just takes something personal. The ego will say, keep smiling, but it's not going to feel good. You're thinking, kind, stay kind, Stay kind, and you know how it is in Japan. That's part of the self-concept of being a woman. You're supposed to be kind. but as soon as you take something personally, even a little bit personally, then the mask tries to stay there as a kind look, a kind appearance, but inside it, oh, that hurts, because the mind has taken something personally, and when it does, the kindness of the spirit is out of awareness. The spirit never takes anything personally, because spirit isn't personal. So it's a really good question, and you have to be remember, in my defenselessness my safety lies. Now, even with the Course in Miracles students and teachers, this has been a very big lesson. I know there was one course teacher who always was talking about kindness, be kind, be kind, be kind. And yet when it came to the copyright controversy, the teacher seemed to take a side. Whoa, when you take a side in this world, the kindness is just a word. The kindness is gone. As soon as you identify with one brother over another, or one side of a illusory issue than another, kindness is gone. Because as soon as judgment enters, gentleness is gone, tolerance is gone, and kindness is gone. So that's why when we watch that movie, Fatima, you really have to like those little examples. Jacinta, she was such a nice example for us of kindness. I think basically, there was maybe one scene where she had a couple scenes, a sad look on her face, but basically she was like, Our Lady said this. She did. She just stayed in the truth of what her experience was. And she was really kind. She was sweet. She was in the Spirit's kindness. Now the people around her seemed to be really upset with that kindness. If she would have been people-pleasing, I don't think she would have said some of those things to the mayor or the Monsignor, the Catholic Church representative. She was just so truthful. And remember, I said yesterday, truthfulness, honesty is consistency. So that's another aspect of this. In order to truly be kind without any people-pleasing involved, you have to say what you mean. You have to mean what you say. You have to have a consistently peaceful state of mind, and then just let the actions, if they are to come involuntarily from Jesus, so that this, it's not a person acting. It's just the words. If there's words, they'll come, or if there's a smile, it will come, or a laughter, it will come. But it all comes from thoughts. It's not about trying to act kind. And I think that's part of the struggle in the human condition is, even with Course students, they say, I should be kind. Should be kind? What does that even mean? I should act kind. Well, don't worry so much about your actions. Watch your mind. Watch your thoughts. Yeah. That's what we're always working on.
I just remembered when I read the Tao Te Ching, there was one sentence. It says, when people lose the Tao, they try to act normal. So when I first read it, I was like, wow, when people try to do good, it's because they already lost the Tao. Mm-hmm. When we're trying to do good, even though that looks so good in this world, that's maybe the best, the highest standard, but inevitably we already lost the spirit. So the spirit is the only good. The spirit knows all situations, how to be truly loving. Like, those 3 saints yesterday, you wouldn't know how to navigate those situations if they didn't just stick with the truth. So I think that is really for us, we have to remember the whole pathways for us to get in touch, to know the spirit. And when we know the spirit, this world will just be seen as it's just how it is. Everything is actually acceptable because they cannot affect our peace of mind. And another example, when you were talking about taking sides, I was thinking, when Bill Thetford, again, when he went to a course group and two students were arguing about what a course sentence means, and then someone asked him, what do you say, Bill? And he said, just rip the page off the book. And that kind of action is a demonstration of an attitude. It's a demonstration of the spirit. It's not the right sentence or the right thing to do, because nobody can come up with a manual of what to do in every situation. That's good. But it is coming from an attitude to be in alignment consistently with the miracle and with the truth. Then that comes through. That becomes such a gentleness that's radiate out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good old Bill. That was a good example. It's better to rip the page out from the book than to argue with your brother. That's what he said at the time, and that is such an example of go into the kindness in your mind, go into your right mind, and be defenseless, and that's be accepting. I think 2,000 years ago, Jesus had a teaching where he said, if someone smite you on one cheek, turn the other cheek. And that, even for Gandhi and Yogananda, they were kind of like, whoa, that's a strong teaching. If somebody smites you on one cheek, turn the other cheek. But Jesus, I don't think, was talking so much about the behavior, like a literal thing, as he was saying, come back to your right mind. If you perceive an insult, if you perceive something that is offensive, if you perceive an attack, turn back to the love of the spirit in your mind. Come back, turn to your right mind, and in that sense, you don't get into a defense, because Gandhi one time said, an eye for an eye, keeping the whole world blind. That's a saying very common in the world, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And Gandhi said, yeah, keeping the whole world blind and toothless. I added that just for a little humor. But he didn't really say that, but he could have said it, but he's a good friend of mine. But basically, it's overturning the whole world, because the world is revenge. If you do this to me, it gets you back. If someone does something wrong, they need to be punished. If someone does something wrong, they need to face the consequences. What Jesus is saying, no, the meek shall overcome the world with their strength. By turning the other cheek, he's just saying, calmly remember what you're here for. You're here for the miracle. You're here to be the light of the world. You're here always for only one reason, is to shine the light of heaven, and to shine it for everyone and everything. And therefore, if we perceive an offense or an attack, he's saying, that's just a misperception. Come back to me. Come back to your right mind. And I think, to me, that really relates to your question. That's how you're kind. If you're a miracle worker, you will naturally radiate kindness. And it will come out with clarity. Kindness and ignorance don't go together, but kindness and clarity do. So a clear mind that's free and open to let the light shine through will naturally be kind, without trying to please any person or place or thing. It's just this. It's the Beatitude. It's like the Beatitudes. Its kindness is like one of the Beatitudes. It's peaceful. So thank you. That's a very subtle question.
Beautiful.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. We still have quite a few questions on our paper list.
Oh, we do? Okay. Should you feel you want to try another one, or are you ready to go
to the live ones?
Go to the live ones.
Well, let's see. We have a meditation question. 2 meditation questions, actually.
Ben Kruger had one, and then there was
David.
And David.
Yeah. Okay, so I will read out Ben Kruger. Ben is saying, I try to identify what is blocking my awareness of love's presence. When I meditate, I can imagine a beautiful light, but then I think that must be my ego manufacturing it. I've started to read the book a second time or listen to David speak, and it is also beautiful. But my mind wanders uncontrollably when I try to meditate. I remember the book explaining that I must be undisciplined. What enters my consciousness are all the reasons and things that don't work and that I'm not doing right. I would like to find a positive thing to focus on that I know is not contaminated by my own ego, if possible.
Thank you, Ben. You were mentioning earlier that experience you had when you had a very, very deep
meditation.
Vipassana meditation. That was very insightful.
Yeah, we were just talking about your question earlier, Ben. We were just saying, it is interesting with the meditation. Sometimes it really happens and it drops in, and it just as a almost like a thing your mind turn to rest. But for some of us, like myself included, it is not really that easy to meditate. And I went to a Vipassana retreat many years ago, and I had a very, very deep experience in the retreat, very deep experience. And then afterward, I thought, I could really, but that meditation, you need to keep it up like an hour morning and an hour night every day. That's for the rest of your life, at least. So I was thinking, well, I would try to do that and see where it turns. And I did. And then in one of the very, very deep meditation, I heard Jesus telling me, this is not your path. A holy relationship is given you. No need. And I just leaped out of the meditation with joy. That's what happened to me. I was in a very deep place, heard him telling me, no need to do this. Meaning, though there's no need to try to meditate. If you just give yourself to me, give your mind, your state of mind to me, I will orchestrate your curriculum, which involves people I will bring to you. These people and these holy relationships are the curriculum that I have selected for you. And you are there for miracles. You're there to witness. You're there to shine the Spirit's presence. So that is really a turning point for me to start to accept, not force the practice, not force the curriculum in any direction. Yeah.
I think too, Ben, that when you approach spiritual awakening and even your practice with the Course, the mind has these unconscious assumptions and beliefs about what spiritual practice is. And for many people, meditation is such a traditional component of spiritual awakening that it's accepted. It's kind of like if you were going to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you would say, well, I need the bread and the peanut butter and the jelly and a knife to spread. Those are the ingredients. And somebody says to you, Ben, you're going to devote yourself to spiritual awakening, and you say, well, yeah, I'm going to study the Course and listen to some of David's stuff and meditate. Those are my ingredients, like the peanut butter and jelly and the knife, the bread. Actually, though, when we presume our pathway to God and we think based on our past learning, oh yeah, meditation, that's got to be in there, and other things that are part of the practice, you still are presupposing what your pathway will be. And what I have found with the Course is when people work with the Course and really give themselves over like you're doing to the Course, the practice, sometimes people will say, well, David, what kind of meditation should I do with my Course practice? And I say, what are you talking about? And they say, well, should I do Vipassana, or should I do transcendental meditation, TM, or should I do Kriya Yoga with my Course practice, and this and this? I say, well, actually, what Jesus says in the Course is, he actually says this Course has everything that you need. And he means it. And what I tell people is, when you're doing the workbook lessons of A Course in Miracles, that's his meditation practice. He's not saying, here, do the workbook and do a little TM and a little Vipassana, a little Kriya Yoga on the side. He's basically saying, if you give yourself over to these lessons, which don't really take much time to do, if you notice, most lessons are quite brief. It's more the focus. Where is your attention? Watch your mind. Watch your mind. You're going to miss some practice periods. That's part of the meditation. Sometimes he'll say, now we will do the deepest form of meditation. Try not to think of anything. My gosh, the whole workbook, the 365 lessons of the workbook, that is the meditation. That is the practice of meditation from Jesus. And then what Francis heard too is, that's not your path. Your path is holy relationship. That's completely what he says in the I Need Do Nothing section too. He comes right out and he says, your way will be different. Holy relationship is given you as a means of saving time. And he actually describes long periods of meditation, contemplation, and fighting against sin in that section. And he says, these ways have served others, and they will reach the goal. But then he says, your way will be different. A holy relationship is given you as the means of saving time. So if you really take it at face value, what Jesus is teaching us, he's basically saying, I'm giving you my advanced course. What does he mean by that? He doesn't actually say the words, but I'm giving you my course because it's a means of saving time. And he's saying you don't need to use ways and means that have served others well. There's nothing wrong with them, but your way will be different. And this is a means of saving time. So that starts to lift you away from this idea of feeling that you have to come up, or that there might be a thought in your mind, Ben should be meditating. And not only that, Ben should be meditating well. And so you do your practice, and then the ego goes, who you fooling, Ben? Who you fooling? You don't have a still mind. It's a mess. You're all over the place. You're like a blender, and you're meditating, and then you don't feel good because the ego is judging your meditation. And then you have a beautiful experience of light, and what does the ego do? It says, you made that up. Hey, listen, when I have an experience of light in my meditations, I'm so happy. I'm happy that it's there. I don't care if it's fabricated, because everything's fabricated already in the world. Somebody wrote to me recently, they sent me a story and they said something about the pandemic was a hoax or whatever. And then they wrote, oh, sorry, David. It was a group. They said, sorry, I didn't mean to send this to David because he already knows that everything in the world is fake. That was the comment at the end. Sorry I sent this to you. I didn't mean to send it to David. He already knows that the whole world is fake. Now, imagine we apply this to you with your meditation. So even when the ego tries to get you again, make you feel guilty and say, oh, Ben, that light you saw, you just made it up. That's not even a real light. You see, the ego just wants to criticize your mind. It will criticize even your meditation because it wants you to feel guilty. And then if you follow what Frances said, you know, how happy she was in the middle of her Vipassana deep meditation, Jesus says, you don't need this. This isn't your way. And then Frances is even happier. But you see, she had to have a pretty open mind to accept that and to be happy. For many people that are on the spiritual journey, you know, they might have said that wasn't Jesus. They would, like the movie yesterday, oh, it was the devil disguised telling you you shouldn't meditate. But Frances was so authentically happy because if you really follow the Course, you really can let go of so many tricks and so many distortions just by simple, honest willingness to follow in a sincere way what you are presented with in the Course. Like those three little ones were so sincere about following what Mother Mary had said to them. And when she said, be here 6 times at the same place at the same time, they were there. They knew that whatever was going on in their world, even if one of them, if the mother was dragging her into church, she was like, no, I can't do this. I have a place I have to be. I have to go. And then the other 2 waited for her. So, you know, I feel your sincerity, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's, you know, we don't oftentimes get a lot of meditation questions, but I just want you to know Jesus wants you to be happy and not feel any kind of judgments or guilt about anything that's happening, including this idea of a meditation. Jesus wants you to naturally give yourself over to the practice that he's offering, and then don't try to add on anything else on top of the simple instructions that he gives. To me, that's the fast track. I just like to follow Jesus' instructions and not add anything else in there. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
And that's maybe leading into David's. That maybe is our last written question. Didn't you say, David? Okay. We love your questions, David. You always come up with these beautiful questions.
David's question is, hi Team Miracles. Here we are with another wonderful weekend of scrubbing bubbles and mind sanitizers. I had to leave the Dark City movie halfway through, that was a week ago, and watch the second half in MWGE. David, in that commentary just before John is taken down to face the wrath of the ego, you say, we must all reach this point in our meditation when we will face the ego head on. At that point, all you need to do is call on the Holy Spirit and ask for all the memories to be reinterpreted. Will this dark meeting happen on our own during meditation, or is it more likely to happen during a supported way at co-living or the monastery? Can you share about your experience? It won't be a picnic, but I want us all to find Shell Beach. Thank you. Hugs to everyone. Thank you, David.
What a sweet question. Yeah. Well, I think when you talk about the depth of having no secrets or having nothing hidden, when Francis and I talked about your question, what came to our mind was the importance of purpose and being on purpose in the miracle, in the collaborations for Christ, in the glee and the energy of being in alignment and service to Jesus. And that is, for us, the most important thing. It's the purpose in the mind being activated that will give you the energy, the strength to face, to look upon anything the ego may throw at you. You want to be well equipped when you face the darkness. You want to be with the Holy Spirit and Jesus when you look upon the ego. It's like if you were going to take a rocket ship to the moon, liftoff is important. You need the most fuel and G-force to begin the movement away from the gravitational field of the world. So the first moments of liftoff, I always like to watch those Saturn V rockets when they would send them off to the moon. At Cape Canaveral, we're all watching. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The thrusters, wow. They've got all the thrusters firing. They've got the big fuel cell at the bottom throwing all this thrust, huge thrust. And you see this giant rocket ship slowly, almost imperceptibly begin to lift off with all this thrust coming on. And then it goes and goes, and then the big tank, the first tank falls away, and it's still firing. And now it's got a smaller one, but it's further out. It's more away from the gravity. And it goes, and then another stage falls away. There's stages of rocket fuel and thrust, but the most thrust comes at the beginning to get out of the pull. That's why your early steps with the Course, when your ego's trying to stop, I'm going to stop David, I'm going to stop him, and it's trying to use the gravitational pull to keep you from getting into orbit. Because once you get into orbit, you're in zero gravity. Zero gravity, weightless. Listen, when you're out in orbit, it's fun. Those astronauts are having a ball out there. They can float around, a piece of liquid goes by, they're just having some fun up there because they're weightless. But escaping the gravitational pull requires a lot of thrust. Now, people have asked me, they said, David, did you actually feel at some point in your life that enlightenment became a focus of your mind? Like I told Francis, well, I would devote your whole life to it if you want to be self-realized or free of the ego. And there was a point where I thought, I'm going to go for this. I'm going for it. And then I could almost feel the ego going, ha, ha, ha. You're going to go for that, ha, ha, ha. You don't know how my gravity is. I've got a lot of gravity, and I'm going to keep you serious in the gravity, the heaviness of this journey. You try this spiritual journey, I'm going to make it hard. I'm going to make it heavy. And so I did get that symbol one time from Jesus where he said, oh, it's like a rocket ship. You pack your fuel. You load up your fuel of miracles. You load your ship full of those miracles because you're going to need every last miracle to break the gravity. And Jesus is like, I know. Trust me. I know. I've been there. I know what this ego thing seems to be. It's something that ultimately doesn't exist, and ultimately you don't need to fear it or take it serious. But while you believe in it, you need miracles. You need a whole course in miracles, actually, David, because he's like saying, you have no idea how how grave this death wish is. You're going to escape, but you're going to need miracles. So I did. I packed my rocket ship with lots of fuel, extra fuel, in case something malfunctions. Let's have extra miracles. Let's just go for the whole kit and caboodle. And that's really the main thing. Now, you were asking about co-living. Co-living is just a symbol, but you've probably seen some of our co-livers, and they're on right now. We probably have our co-livers waving in there. Co-living is just a symbol. It's all the world is symbols. And so for me, co-living is like when I started to seek out people who were also devoted to A Course in Miracles. And at the time, I just traveled around. I didn't go to like Ken and Gloria Wapnick and say, hey, Ken, Gloria, I want to live with you. Can I move into your basement of your house? They probably get away, But I did. I visited Tara Singh and Robert Perry, and I spent actually quite a bit of time with Ken and Gloria Wapnick up at the Catskill Mountains up there in New York. And Jesus did take me on trips to meet a lot of brothers and sisters who were dedicating their lives to A Course in Miracles. And I remember Jesus said, this is important. You need to meet people who are really dedicated to this pathway as symbols. Like that was like symbols of human beings that were devoting their days to the study and practice of A Course in Miracles. I can't possibly overestimate how important that was for me to take that trip for like 5.5 weeks in 1991, or the trip to see Tara Singh in Monroe, Michigan in 1989, or the visit to see Ken and Gloria Wapnick in 1990 during the winter. That was my first of a number of visits. So co-living, there's nothing special about it, but it's just symbols. And when your mind is praying for symbols that can be helpful in the unwinding of the ego or in the opening your heart to more miracles, like what was it, Vanessa yesterday? Mm-hmm. Vanessa was telling us all at the end how she was like out and the Jesus symbols and meeting the children and going to the market, and she was so excited about the miracle experiences she was having. And she's been co-living for a couple...
She will be, I think, total 2 months.
2 months. So she's given herself like a 2-month co-living experience. And it's not like she is having all her miracles inside the walls. She's out there in Chapala with the Jesus symbols and Mary and the kids coming up to her. You could tell she was happy to just be out there seeing the symbols, seeing the miracles. So it's not, we can't really stereotype and say, come inside these 4 walls and help with Ken's garden and you'll be enlightened. We can't make any promises, but we can say that these are symbols that Ken's like, I can guarantee it. You give your whole heart to those tomatoes and bell peppers and onions, and he's like, you're coming out of there enlightened, I tell you. But actually, we can't make promises in terms of form, but we do know that if you follow your joy and you follow your inspiration, you'll have an energy, a synergy, an activation going on in you that will transform the world you see before the world disappears, before you just go into the blazing light. You'll have a happy dream. And that's what we want to encourage. That's why we're doing these events. That's the whole purpose for us to do these online events. We're here to inspire and be inspired, and we actually have some pretty good fun doing these things. So thank you. That's a good way to wrap up our written questions. And wow, look at the time, my God.
We just wrap up the written ones for this time.
Well, let's still do some video ones. We still can have some fun with some face-to-face ones. Your questions were so good that we had to spend 2 hours on them. But now let's do some live interactions here.
Okay. Well, we've just posted in the chat there how to raise your digital hand, and you will be translated, so please speak slowly and just keep to the heart so we can get through everybody. So first, we are going to go with John McNally. You can unmute there, John.
Hi, John.
Hello, David. Hi, Francis. Me, John, and Cindy. And God, what a blessing to be here. And we're overwhelmed with joy. This is like our 5th retreat with you guys on Zoom. And thank God for Zoom. And COVID-19 brought you into my living room. You can't make this stuff up, right? Like, how does Hoffmeister come to my pandemic? So, what a joy. So I want to expose a few things that have happened to Cindy and I just recently. And it happened this week. The Holy Spirit dropped a couple of packages off at our front door, and literally. And it happened like this. But first I want to say this, that we came to David Hoffmeister and the Living Miracles group through my dear friend Jeffrey Kosker. And he went out to Utah to live with you guys. And I have to say that when he went, David, the things that came up for me was like, oh my God, I lost my best friend to a cult. And I was very scared, and I thought I had lost him to you and the group. And what I would like to say is that lovingly you've come into my home, and through your books and the guidance that I've gotten from you, I know that thinking was ego, and it was trying to scare you away. And I'm glad that it didn't, so thank you for that. And so what happened this week was the parable of Cindy and John, 30 years married, 20 of those years, a lot of destructive alcoholic living, drinking, drugging, and with that there was infidelity and all manner of if I look back at it, it seems like these are the things that I did, a lot of wreckage. And so I've been sober for 10 years, and had the Course in Miracles delivered to me while I was in treatment, and have been in the big book ever since. And so there is a past, from that living and drinking, and that Cindy has a picture of that past, and I also do. And upon our door on Wednesday came a package, and that package came from California, where I got sober. And it was delivered from a friend who emptied out my room when I was arrested in California to serve some time in Connecticut. And so a package came Wednesday, and it was books and knickknacks and trinkets. And then Thursday, another box came. And again, more stuff that I had before I was arrested and all that, those things happened. And so what happened for Cindy and I was it brought up fear for both of us. So we didn't talk about that at the moment. What we talked about was, what came up was anger. Cindy went to the kitchen. I jumped on the chair and started pouting and got angry because I could feel her anger. And so there was just silence, no communication. And we were both, and in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to run away from home. I'm sick of this bullshit and I can't take it anymore. And I'm out. And I don't know what Cindy's thinking. I just know it stirred up that past, And so yesterday, after Friday night, and yesterday we were out in a car driving, and we got to talk about what really went down. And we talked about, and I exposed what I had been thinking. And we talked about what Cindy potentially had been thinking. And it's funny that the mind brought me back to that place where I was destructive, and I was about to jump back into old behavior, or my desire was to jump back into old behavior. And I didn't. I stayed, and we, went to the movie yesterday, and what a beautiful experience. But this has been the first time Cindy and I have been able to actually say these things out loud, what thoughts are going on in our heads, and saying out loud. And we were laughing about it yesterday on the ride home, and knowing that we were coming to the movie. So there's been fear about exposing private thoughts, And in Alcoholics Anonymous, we do that through the 12 steps, but not on this level. It's a little different. And so I just want to thank you for continually bringing that same concise, consistent message to us, and offering us this opportunity of forgiveness. And I've been able to find some forgiveness for the beliefs that I had about you and the Living Miracles. And now it's actually coming into practical application in Cindy and I's relationship that's probably been special, mostly. And today it's beginning to change, and directly related to you guys and the Course in Miracles and the lessons and a new approach. So yes, we love you guys.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Cindy. When you were talking too, I had one of the movies from our Movie Watcher's Guide to Enlightenment come to mind that may be a helpful one that you both can have a great experience with. And it's a movie called Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And Kate Winslet is in that, and Jim Carrey. And at the end of the movie, they have both been into this with this doctor and this exposing their thoughts, and the tapes come in the mail at the end of the movie, come into mail to them, and they both open them up, and it's got all their private thoughts about each other on the tapes. And they get into the car together, and they put the tape in, and there they are, laid bare for both of them. It's kind of a beautiful scene. And Joel and Clementine, Joel said, I don't really think that about you. They're actually commenting in a beautiful, miraculous way about the thoughts. And she'll say, I didn't really feel that way about you either. But it's so healing. I remember watching that movie, and I think that could be like a nice dinner date for you. You guys can have a nice dinner and sit down and rent Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and just enjoy that last scene when the private thoughts are there, but they're not taking him seriously. The love is stronger than the judgments, than the private thoughts. And they're not going to hold each other to the private thoughts. They're going to continue on healing together. So thank you, John. Thank you, Cindy, for your transparency. And yeah, God bless you. God bless you.
Okay, thank you. So next we can go with Julie. You can unmute there.
Hi, thank you. I feel kind of embarrassed I even have this issue, but I know it's ego. When it comes to the Course in Miracles, I know it says son in capital S to mean, we're all God's children, but it's never like, I started blocking out son and putting daughter so I could have it's hard for me to relate for some reason. And I know it's from my upbringing. In my upbringing, women their lives were never really celebrated like a man. I remember being a child wishing I was a boy because they got the good stuff. They got the good life. And I know those are my ego issues. But and when watching that movie yesterday, what really hit my heart was Mother Mary. It was like, wow, there's a female, somebody I could look at that was just like Jesus, like God, like, and that was a role model to me. So I'm still having that issue of son and we're all, all your brothers instead of brothers and sisters. And I know it's ego, but if there's anything you could guide me in with that, I would appreciate it.
Beautiful, Julie. That actually, I've been traveling around to like 44 countries for the last 30 years, and that actually does come up quite a bit. So it's quite a common expression, and the core teaching is that love is content and not form of any kind. And so, of course, you even with the Course, when you see these frustrations or wishing the language was different, some people have difficulty with the Course. They'll tell me it's the Christian language. They don't at all like the Christian language. And some will say, oh, it's the masculine pronouns. That just drives me crazy. I was doing a gathering one time in St. Louis, and I was being hosted by my friend John Hutkin, and his mother was there. His mother would frequently show up, and she looked over there, and I saw her putting her hand up, and so I said, yeah. And she said, I have a friend who's Jewish. They always start out with, I have a friend who's Jewish. You see, it says, I have a friend who's a woman. I have a friend who's Jewish. And for she was having some reactions to the Christian terminology. So that is extremely common. And I think that because the Course was coming from Jesus, that somewhere deep in the mind, there was a decision made to use the form of the Christian terminology because it was helping to undo a lot of the distortions that the ego made into Christianity. So, for example, if there was going to be a correction for Buddhism or a correction for Hinduism or Taoism or something that would be like a higher interpretation, although all those things are quite beautiful, just like Christianity, that it has to use a language to repurpose it, to clear away the distortions. And I think there was some decision made that that would be a reinterpretation of Christianity from a very high perspective to purify it, which really, the mind is the thing that's being purified, is not Christianity, but purify the mind from these past associations. So it's not strange at all, considering your upbringing and your background, that you would have a reaction to those pronouns and the use of the masculine pronouns. Actually, Jesus, he dictated the text, the workbook, and the manual for teachers, using these pronouns. And then when he basically decided to dictate the Song of Prayer, which came as a request from Ken Wapnick to Helen, maybe Jesus has more to say on prayer than green pantyhose and Borgana coats, sweet Ken. I think it's a little deeper topic than Borgana coats and things like that. Then Jesus started using, guess what? He started using the feminine pronouns in the Song of Prayer. You want to spend some time with the Song of Prayer. It's kind of fun because it was almost like he was telling Helen, really, I can do it any way that you want, and it was like a little treat for her. But overall, the context was, I would say, purifying the mind of the distortions that the ego had made, penance, suffering. There's a lot of distortions. The ego almost, it took the teachings of Jesus and it said, I'm just going to flip them upside down if you don't mind, and emphasize all the wrong things that perpetuate the ego, when the whole point of Jesus was to undo the ego. that was his focus. I have met a lot of people too around the world, when I'll say, how is Jesus for you? And they say, he's kind of stern, and I'm a bit afraid of Jesus. A lot of people that were even raised Catholic or different Christian denominations, they'll say, oh no, Jesus isn't my friend. I say, well, who is your friend? The angels. I like Mary. They really relate based on their conditioning to certain symbols. And just like in Hinduism, it's elephants and there's different symbols for different cultures. But I think it's great that you're bringing it up, because what Jesus is saying is, if you have a reaction, we go full circle to what I first mentioned. I'm never upset for the reason I think. And even if you have a reaction to the wording of the Course, it gives you an opportunity to see it in a different way. And it may take time. It usually does for most of us, where something seems to rub us the wrong way. And we say, I really would appreciate it if it could look like this instead of this. Or you really want to reach me? Yeah, give me a little more of this instead of less of that. And that's how we kind of do. But Jesus is saying, it's a tremendous opportunity to start to see that it's not a male-female thing, and that Jesus and the Holy Spirit will bring to you symbols that are helpful, and that is so beautiful too. I remember in the early years, I think it was the 1990s, I was traveling around doing all these gatherings. And I was at one particular gathering where the topic came up about rape and being molested and so on and so forth. And the woman who was raising the question, I was actually showing a movie. What was the one with Barbara Streisand and Richard Dreyfuss? It was about sexual abuse. The theme of the movie was, we were using it for healing and mind watching, but it was a very famous movie. And at the end of the movie, the woman who was raising the issue that she had coming up during the movie, she couldn't even look me in the eye. And it was the perception of a man in front of her, and she had such a charge. It was really deep sexual abuse issues with her father. And so I remember I had a student of mine, and I said to the student, who's female, why don't you go off and talk to her? She's going to be able to work this through with you, and that will be the most helpful thing. And sure enough, my student went off with her, and they had a huge healing experience. So just know that the Spirit always will bring you, always without exception, everything that would be helpful and that you need. And that if there are still reactions that come up, that's like they say, grist for the mill. That's a huge opportunity to transcend the dualistic terms of the ego, and to actually go back into what Francis talked about Friday night, which was this harmonious mind experience, that's what holy relationship really is. Yeah. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, Julie. Next, we can go to Johnny. You can unmute there.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've got to pull my notes up here to try to keep up with what my thoughts were along the way. Let me just give you just a tiny background on myself a little bit, just so you'll know where I'm coming from, and that the questions I have for you are not a challenge, but actually a desire for information. I've been studying the Course for about 1.5 years, and some with the help of Greg Donner. He's answered some questions for me. And I reach a point that probably the best way to explain it is I was discussing um, where I feel that I am with a friend. And I told that friend, just imagine that we're driving along a fast interstate highway and all kind of cars, and I look in the rearview mirror and all these cars start piling up. They have crashes and people's bodies are flying out the windows or whatever. And I said, if I'm in the right place, that I can keep driving because that's not really happening. And my friend said, well, what if that's your son and his family? I said, if I'm in the right place, I know that my son was never born. My grandchildren were never born. I was never born. None of us were, because if this is a dream world and this is an illusion, then I accept that 100%. And then, so just to let you know that is sort of where I am right now. But I'm more interested in getting your take. Excuse me a second here. I need to get my notes in order here. I'm interested in the details of the times that you experienced holy instances and where you are now. For example, are you currently in continuous communications with God, with Jesus, the Holy Spirit, the Sonship, my own mind, perhaps? So I guess my thoughts are, once you have experienced the holy instant, what is it that you bring with you? And from my understanding of what I've read, of course, in the course, is that you look upon the body differently. But what do you bring with you? Or is your mind still with the Holy Spirit, with the Sonship? And was there a specific reason that you had more than one holy instant? Was it based on a necessity? And that's just a matter of curiosity. And I wonder if you could explain. I know I'm expecting to have this. I'm opening myself up completely to experiencing the holy instant. And one of the things that Jesus tells us is that we will bring thousands with us when we do that. And I'm just wondering if you could give us just an overview, a few words on how that takes place. And that's the end of my little spiel.
No, thank you. Thank you, Johnny. That's beautiful. Those are beautiful, very, very sincere questions. I really feel that coming from your heart. In terms of the last question about the how, I would say it's through prayer and desire, which are really two words for the same thing. The prayer of the heart, the desire is what brings the holy instant or the revelatory experience into experience, is through prayer and desire. And even that movie we saw yesterday, wow, the fervent prayers of those little ones, even with their game, instead of playing tag or Got You Last, they were singing Ave Maria into the hills, and to me that was a prayer of their heart. That was their game, and they were very fervent with their prayers. In terms of what do you bring with you from the holy instant, or I call it revelation, and it's something that is a direct experience, and therefore the question of what comes before it or what comes after it is a question of perception. And then, of course, in the holy instant, there are no questions. That's just a direct experience of reality, of light. And so what seemed to come after it for me was that there actually was some ego fear that came up after the light experience, after the holy instant, seemingly after it. It was like the ego reacting like, what was that? Like fear. coming up, and then I went through a process of like letting go and releasing after that. And that happened with all three revelatory experiences. There was a fear upon seeming to return to perception. The ego was interpreting. It always looks back. And it looked back and was like, what was that? You know, it was frightened of the light. And that we could say that's, of course it is. It's a death wish. It's frightened of eternal life because it doesn't know what that is, and it's clearly not it. So that was an experience. But also in a positive sense, I had a sense of more certainty, and certainty really isn't a more or less experience, but it was this feeling of that the world was like a veil, a thin veil, that it wasn't solid. It was very ephemeral. It was like a thin veil, but it didn't have a solid reality. And therefore, it seems like in my heart, I was inspired by, like, I was like, wow, this is Jesus showing me, drawing down to my mind a revelatory experience to give me a glimpse of what it's all about. And I took that as to be extremely helpful all three times. You know, when I would get past the fear moment, reaction, I would be like, thank you. And Jesus was like, yeah, you were ready for that. And in that sense, it was very helpful and positive, because I never could take the world so seriously or have such gravity attached to the images after that. And it does feel like it is a continuous flow of communication, and that is, I think, the best way to describe it is that's what the Course in Miracles is about. It's about becoming consistently miracle-minded, or I would even say habitually. You know, if you were going to have a good habit, to be habitually right-minded or habitually miracle-minded is really the goal for myself and really for everyone. I see that's really that's what we devote ourselves to, is to that experience and that practice. So that's where my state of mind is, and also this great joy in being used in this way. Like we have a lot of fun. All of us really have so much fun and joy with these kind of experiences, these kind of uses of our prayers, of our devotion. So we're really grateful. And I'm glad that you could take some notes and ask those questions. And it's, you know, really, revelation is not something that can be transmitted in terms of words. But I do know that the words, for me, have been very helpful, sometimes as little pointers, kind of like the old Zen master pointing to the moon, pointing to the light. You know, that's what I see these words as, and see this course. So thank you, Johnny. Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny. Well, we can go to Mexico co-living. I heard that Suzanne is there, but there might be a couple people we can see.
Okay. Great. Hi, guys. How is everyone?
Hi, Suzanne.
Hi. Good to see you with long hair. Very, very cute. Hey, so I've been wanting to share for a few weeks, and for whatever reason, it just hasn't come up. And as I was sitting here waiting, I wanted to crystallize what's been going on for me, because I am here co-living. And the way that I'm seeing everything at the moment is through this choice of special relationship, wanting to attest to the separateness, or the holy relationship, wanting to attest to innocence. And through all of the movies, the common thread, David, seems to be, what is our willingness to see that innocence? And I was talking to Ken last week about this idea of how difficult it is to connect to love and our fears of love. And by the way, everyone that's spoken, I can relate to everything that you've said. So what is that intense fear of love? And there's a lot of discussion around, well, turn to Jesus. Well, I decided to create an imaginary friend. She has no name because she is me. She is a part of me that since I've been here has been talking to me. And I hear her because she is my pretend imaginary friend. I bring all of my fears to her. I bring my anxieties, future thoughts, and because I'm making her up, I'm taking everything that I know about the course, almost 10 years of reading and attempting the lessons. And she now, whenever there's something that comes up, she tells me that I'm loved, and I don't, and I can't recreate it right now. There's a little bit too much pressure to share some of the words that I hear. But it is so intensely loving, so intensely fulfilling. Because I know I've used relationships to get what the little girl, the Suzanne I think I am, has been trying to get from the world. Money, relationships, whatever. And having this voice who I know really gets me. I don't have to describe all the problems. She already sees exactly what I think I'm thinking. And she lovingly holds that knowingness of how innocent I am. And as I mysteriously feel this love, it's so much easier to be loving everywhere else. It's almost like I am conducting the love that I hear from her. And she, by the way, sits here or wherever the right is. And I can just innocently express that childlike innocence, that joy, completely without thinking. Now, this is a complete 100%, 180-degree change in, I can't even describe what that is either. And I wanted to share this because I know how difficult it was to me to hear voices and how much I wanted to hear a voice. So I made one up. And what's great about this is that it doesn't matter that I made it up. All of the symbols seem to be changing. My relationships, my desire to continually see people as innocent. Is it infallible 100% of the time? No, that's why she's there. She's there to talk me down from whatever distress, whatever grievance I may have. And it has been indescribable. So for those who have stress that they're not hearing things or that there needs to be something outside of them coming in, I'm pretending. I'm being those three little kids, and I didn't even know it. That's why this movie was so great. I'm being those three little kids, and I'm witnessing myself talk to myself. And that has been an unbelievable gift. And just to wrap this up, the signs of that are showing up in every area that I'm aware of right now. My physical relationship, which is just it's just so joyful. I would prefer to see him innocent, and then I can more easily see other people innocent because it's easier for me to make him wrong all the time. So my willingness to go, none of that matters, is sort of translating and transmitting out into the world and everything else. So there's hope. There is hope. You just make it up, and it's just there. So blessings. Thank you. So glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We might go to Sundus. You can unmute there.
Hello, David. I don't know if you remember me. I did your workshop on under Christ control. Carefree, careless, and cared for. And since I did that, I have been in turmoil. It took me to death. I tried to kill myself twice. I woke up and I saw myself, I'm still here. I wanted to check out. And doing the hospitalization, this was, a year and a half ago, whatever. I've been hospitalized 3 times. And I was angry. I didn't want to be here. I've been with the course for quite some years, 22 years or more, I don't know. And I'm very anxious right now. I'm really shaking because I'm just fear. I'm like literally fear. I'm at the point of my life from the PTSD where they call flop and drop. My body doesn't, there is no communication between my mind, my body, and my heart. And so at that point right now, I just lay down. At this point, it's just, I feel so powerless that I just lay down because I am on that paralyzed autopilot. So anyways, to go back, Jesus came to me while I was in the hospital at St. Luke's. And I said, Jesus, why? I'm angry. Why? You took my daughter. She committed suicide and now she was not saved at age 20. And I've been trying to kill myself ever since I can remember. I don't want to be here. And then you keep me alive. Why? I don't want to be here. I'm just existing. I'm not living. I'm in panic attack. I'm on defense mode. Every cell of my body. And then yet I have been on the other side, because if I haven't been to the other side, I wouldn't be here right now with you guys. So that's the obvious. And he said to me, all I want you to do, you're here for me alone. And you are here just to smile and represent me who sent you. But I can't do it. I'm so scared. I've been scared. Before I was even born here, I've been scared. My mom tried to kill me 3 times. So here I am. I survived 3 deaths from my mother attempt. I'm number 1. And all I want to do right now is to go back. So whatever I have committed myself to before being here, it's too much. Or then I just heard something right now, because I've been asking the holy instant. I've been trying to be in the present moment. I've been trying to practice the power of now. And I'm scared. I'm scared because God has talked to me many times before where he had taken me out, even in the middle in Baghdad, Iraq, on top of the roof. I would go and he would lift me up, at age whatever, 5 or whatever, lift me up and have me see the whole world since the beginning of civilization in an instant. And that would be the scariest thing ever can be experienced. When you be able to see the whole world as it is, the universe, it is the scariest thing imaginable. And I need help. I like the movie at first. When I wasn't even here yesterday with you guys. It was my birthday, by the way. It was my belly birthday. So I was getting texts and whatever, and I was totally in my ego. Then I didn't see the movie, and I couldn't be with you guys. So I decided to look it up, and I decided to watch the movie. I watched it twice. The same movie, Fatima. And Fatima, by the way, it's the daughter of Muhammad. Her name is Fatima, and so that's a very huge name. And then I said, what if I was raised Catholic? And I said, what if this movie is telling us? What if this writer said to us that? To her not to publish it until now, to become available right now because it's came out 2020. That this is going to be happening and this is the right time to bring out this book. That we are all saints and we are maybe to go back into Catholicism. I've been asking Jesus to give me some answers. So that came to my mind. What if that was a sign that the course and where we're at right now and it's all to take us back to Catholicism?
Well, I can address some of those things. First of all, but Catholicism is just a concept, part of that big world that you saw. It's part of history. Take us back to Jesus or to the Christ. Yeah, that's what you're speaking is so beautiful because you really talk to Jesus and have Jesus speak to you, and that's the point really of everything. I think it's not so much a time context, but it's to come into the holy instant through joining with Jesus. And when you were talking too about the intensities that you've experienced in this lifetime, and also in even since that workshop that we did a while back, it reminds me of the introduction in A Course in Miracles, where Jesus says, free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum, but it does mean that you can decide what you want to take at a given time. So let's just say free will is perfect happiness, is oneness with God or oneness with our source, and that we always have the option of what we want to take at a given time. It's a big goal to know God's will. And so I want you to just take that in and to feel the gentleness of that in what seems to be a human lifetime is the mind goes as far as it chooses to go. And think of the body as more of like this, it's a symbol, it's a tool, it's a device that's part of all the other tools and devices of this world that's helping us forgive, to feel the innocence, to feel that deep love. And I think the torture always comes in at trying to figure this world out. I've had experiences where I've been shown the whole world, and what comes with that, like you said, it's wow, what an experience to see the whole world, all of history, to see everything. Wow, it's an experience. And then, oh, I see your kitty cat is joined us too, back in the chair. He's got his paw up for God there. I see that ultimately Jesus has told me, don't try to figure this world out, because whenever I've gotten into torture, that's how he answers me. He said, don't try to figure it out, the world. He keeps saying, stay with me. I can help you, but don't try to figure the world out. And that's the opposite message that we've had our whole life. Because when we have experiences like your mother trying to kill you 3 times, or your beautiful 20-year-old daughter committing suicide, or even your own suicide attempts, more recent suicide attempts, how can we figure that out? How can we try to find a meaning in that? But I think as Francis always says, there is one within us that is always there for us, and that really loves us just as we really are, and is always there for us in every conceivable circumstance and situation. That presence is always available, always there. I take comfort in that. That's where I find my comfort, but not in the world. I would say, like you, I've looked at the world at times and just thought, bizarre, absolutely bizarre. And Jesus is like, hang in there with me. I have a way in here. Just stay with me. So thank you for being so transparent with us all. And I think, in this, what we just are talking about, there is the sparkles of hope in that connection with Jesus. That's where it is. And I'm glad you got to watch Fatima twice. I did too. I watched it a while back, and then I watched it with all of you. So I got to see it a couple times. It was as good the second time as the first. Yeah. And you're so deeply loved. And I'm just so glad to see you and connect with you this way.
Yeah. And one thing was, you mentioned, what if that we are actually become saints, and that's actually true. I remember David always says at the beginning, we're all just come here saints in training. That's who we are, saints in training. So even though sometimes we can't just accept our function as Jesus wants us to be, which is what he told you, just to be his smile. That's what our function really is, to be his presence, to be his smile. But we seem to be doing other things, but still the underneath purpose is we're here to be saints in training. This is what this path is about.
Yeah. And as you finish speaking, then the cat rested now. The cat behind you just chilled out. It was a perfect symbol. So thank you, Sandas. Thank you. It's beautiful to see your smile. Yeah.
Okay, well, we have another 7 minutes or a bit less. How are you guys feeling there?
Well, I'm ready for a bathroom break, but Frances is here. That's good.
I'm ready to.
We're both ready. So we're going to do tag team.
I was thinking. Okay, you go first. Okay.
Well, maybe we can go with Thomas next. You can unmute.
Hi, Thomas.
Okay, thanks. Hey, well, good to be with everyone again, and thank you. It's a little difficult to go after. That was heavy. So my heart goes out and makes my situation seem piddly. So Frances, thank you. Really benefited from your opening remarks yesterday. That was awesome and very helpful. And so just a small issue here, and we get some clarification on a couple items. So I have a special relationship with money and being able to have a consistent flow to take care of myself. You know, I realized David mentioned last week during the movie about needing to deal with the self-hatred concept. And I'd never really thought about that much. And I guess there's self-hatred if I have been upset and had regrets about my inability. I've over the past 20 years, I'm in business for myself. I've had to deal with a lot of changes. My business was taken from me about 5 years ago during a corporate takeover. And then I was laid off at the beginning of COVID. And so I've had to keep dealing with this frustration, and I get upset because I make it so important and real, get angry about it, whatnot. And yet I know that, that the world's an impossible situation. And I'm just trying to figure out a way to smooth out to maintain the carefree, careless, and grateful. But I wonder how this thing about what I have to do with the self-hatred, is there something I need to think about to deal with? Because ultimately what we're dealing with is the guilt over the original separation, which I have a hard time relating to because I'm into this specific situation. And so I'm just looking. But what has happened is over the past 6 months that I've been listening to you and David and the materials, the one thing I've noticed, I don't necessarily get answers, and I talked to, David last week and you guys about, I don't feel the guidance. I don't sense it ever. All there typically is just everything has just become quiet. And if I go back to I rest in God, I understand my attack thoughts are attacking my vulnerability. It just gets quiet. And I'm grateful for the quiet, even though I don't have any specifics. So, and I guess so the frustration is I keep having to be pulled into apparently dealing with the form, what job do I take? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? And that's, and then the money thing comes back, and that is exhausting. And I'd like to pull out of it. And if you have any thoughts about that, does that make sense? Hopefully.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Thomas. And thank you for bringing up the money, the concern, the practicality of it all, decision making, and also the self-hatred. And the self-hatred is not really toward Thomas. It's not in Thomas. It's really the ego. Just the underpinning of this whole world is based on the self-hatred, deviating from the self. So in a way, it is to face the self-hatred is to face a massive fear and darkness, and for this journey, in my experience, is not like so. Originally, what I envisioned is like a milestones of achievements. So you face the darkness, then you come to the light, then you awake, something like that. How do I face the darkness? But then gradually I just realized it's in this very gradual and gentle pathway that Jesus has already laid out. And I don't really have to think too much. That's your question. Do you have to think too much about the self-hatred? I don't have to think too much about it, about the problem, whatever name I call it, how it manifests in the world. But I do want to focus my mind on the solution. And in the solution, I start to see what the problem is. Right now, no matter at the beginning, no matter how much I define the darkness, I actually had no idea. So, but in the solutions, in the miracles, I started to understand more and more and see more and more. So every single miracle is an answer. Every single miracle is an answer. It's not only about that situation that occurs, but is an answer to absolutely everything. So this is how the pathway looks like. We go one miracle at a time, and the mind is washed, and the darkness will be washed away. And in terms of practicality, I do understand and relate to what you're saying, like constantly being pulled to these practical decisions and concerns as well. And what is the guidance? I have no idea what the guidance is. And I felt like at the beginning I was really struggling with. Sometimes the guidance comes to me so loud and clear, but so spontaneous. I didn't even ask for it, and it seemed to be miraculous. But then other times, over a long period of time, I ask and I ask and I ask, and I don't know. I still second guess. But I started to realize, at one point, I always have consistent experience and certainty of guidance after I changed the way I ask the question. The question stopped from, what should I do, Spirit? It turned to, oh, Spirit, I want to be happy now because I'm concerned, I'm nervous, and it's just like, Spirit, I want to be happy now. What are the steps, if there is any steps? And somehow from that frame, it's like a framing of the mind. What do I want? I want happiness. I want happiness in this situation. I want happiness for this day. Then everything that started to become very, very obvious, the things I need to do, the thought that come to my mind, the decisions, it become very, very specific. So that is my little trick that I realized was really made a lot of difference. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much, Thomas, for bringing it up. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned you might be ready for a break, but we also have Svava with her wooden guitar. You better enjoy it. When that white electric guitar makes its presence known here, it could rock the world. But she still has the wooden guitar, and she also has a song for all of us that I think you'll be able to remember the name of. It's called Love. That's the title of the song, so maybe you'll grace us with love.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. All the blocks to truth are gone. Fear is back where it came from. No more hate and no more doubt. The fear of love is cast out. Only love remains. The holy mind is free from chains. Now forever, eternal mind. Sorry. I was getting a bit dizzy and overwhelmed, so I'm gonna start at the chorus again. I think I need to start from the beginning, sorry. All the blocks to truth are gone. Fear is back where it came from. No more hate and no more doubt. The fear of love is cast out. Only love remains. The holy mind God's voice. Real love is the only choice. Nothing else is real or true. Know that God is in love with you. Only love remains. The holy mind is free from chains. Now forever, eternal mind that cannot be defined. All the blocks to truth are gone. Fear is back where it came from. No more hate and no more doubt. The fear of love is cast out. Only love remains. The holy mind is free from chains. Now forever, eternal mind that cannot be defined. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. Love. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, it's beautiful. And that song was which album?
It's from the album called The Light of Truth.
The Light of Truth. That's the most recent.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's a soft landing.
Beautiful wrapping for a deep retreat.
Yeah. Yes. We start off talking about holy relationship and we end with only love remains. Yeah. It's very soft. Well, I just feel so much gratitude that we can share this together in this way. This is such a precious answer to our prayer. And when I was listening to Thomas talk too, and he was saying the concerns and the practicalities like take over, it always helps me to remember when I think of the word pray or prayer that it seems like quite a religious term, but Jesus reminds me that it's just desire. What do I want? And I was named after David, King David in the Bible, pretty famous for the Psalms, but I remember my grandmother would always tell me the 23rd Psalm, and the way that the 23rd Psalm starts out, the first line is, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." And I think that that's just reminding me that, wow, all I have to do is call upon God and call upon Jesus and let go of everything else and just be shown, just follow the way that is shown, and the simplicity of that. And even with our three little seers, how they had their little prayer beads. It's good to have some props sometime. They'd hold on to their little prayer beads and they'd say, "Hail Mary, full of grace." They would start oftentimes with the rosary, and that just gave them a structure to begin to pray with, and then they would get into it like a mantra, repeating it over and over, and just get more devoted, more fervent with that prayer. And Jesus says, yeah, that's it. Your prayer is your desire, and when you want only love, you will see nothing else. And Francis described it's a process that has to unfold. We just give ourselves over to it, though, in such a full way. And that's so beautiful that we can come to that feeling of, okay, it can be this simple. Because when Thomas was speaking, I was saying, yeah, I think everyone can relate to being distracted by all kinds of seemingly specific concerns and worries and problems and regrets, and that's the time to have the faith to come back to that prayer.
Yeah, I think also when Johnny asked about the revelation or in Holy Instant experience, and I remember I had a light experience very early on in my the first time I came to the monastery, actually. And among many things, but one thing that I took away from that was there's a lot of work to do. that's what I took away. There is a lot of work to do, but the work that I'm talking about is the work of desire and work of purifying the desire. If we want holiness above all else, we will have holiness with everybody. And so this is the work, but really the way it looks like is going to be miracle after miracle, because it's Jesus with us together in this journey. So it's really a very, very glorious and beautiful journey. So I just I'm grateful for you all to be here, to join us in this topic, and to allow us to share and to share your experience and your questions. It's truly the most beautiful experience, best use of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you all. Thank you.